Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Govt and these are the headlines. Afghanistan's military says 11 Taliban fighters have been killed in an airstrike in northern Faryab province. In a statement, the military said the airstrike destroyed a Taliban camp in the Karma Kul district of the province. The Taliban have not yet commented on the claim. Meanwhile, police say President Ashraf Ghani's senior advisor on public affairs, Mohammad Hassan HOUTHI, has been killed in an attack in capital Kabul. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have reaffirmed the pledge to bolster bilateral ties. The understanding was reached during a meeting between Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and Saudi envoy Nawaf bin Said Al Maliki in Islamabad. Qureshi said Pakistan will stand by Saudi Arabia to protect its territorial integrity against all threats. The first commercial flight from Israel to the United Arab Emirates has landed in Abu Dhabi. This comes after the two countries signed a US brokered peace deal earlier this month to normalize relations. Three Baltic states have imposed travel bans on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and 29 other officials. The sanctions target officials accused of playing a role in the unrest that has gripped the country since the de-election of Lukashenko. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia also called on the West to take a firm action against Lukashenko. India has become the world's third worst affected country with more than 64,000 COVID-19 deaths, overtaking Mexico as 971 people died overnight. India's coronavirus infections have crossed 3.6 million after more than 78,000 tested positive in a day. Meanwhile, in Pakistan, 6 people have lost their lives to the virus overnight, taking the toll to 6,294 with over 295,000 cases. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 847,000 lives, while over 25 million have contracted the disease. Those were the headlines and detailed stories right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Afghanistan's military says 11 Taliban fighters have been killed in an airstrike in northern Faryab province. In a statement, the military said the airstrike destroyed a Taliban camp in the Karma Kul district of the province. The Taliban have not yet commented on the claim. Meanwhile, Afghan President Ashraf Ghani's advisor has been killed in an attack in capital Kabul. Meanwhile, police said President Ashraf Ghani's senior advisor on public affairs, Mohammad Hassan HOUTHI, has been killed in an attack in capital Kabul. Ghani has condemned the killing, calling for a prompt investigation. There was no immediate claim of the responsibility. China has demanded India withdraw troops that Beijing said had illegally crossed their shared border. The Chinese military spokesman said Beijing is taking countermeasures and will safeguard its territorial sovereignty. Earlier, China denied Indian allegations that its troops crossed the line of actual control in Ladakh region. The foreign ministry said the two sides are communicating regarding conditions on the ground. The statement came after New Delhi claimed Indian troops foiled Chinese army's military movements in Ladakh. The two countries have been in a standoff over the Ladakh border dispute that erupted in late April. 20 Indian soldiers were killed in fighting that broke out between the two sides in Ladakh's Galwan Valley. Pakistan and Saudi Arabia have reaffirmed to pledge to bolster bilateral ties. The understanding was reached during a meeting between Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and Saudi envoy Nawaf bin Said Al Maliki in Islamabad. Qureshi said Pakistan will stand by Saudi Arabia to protect its territorial integrity against all threats. He strongly condemned Houthi rebels' continuous attempts at targeting civilians and military sites in the kingdom. The two leaders also discussed a wide range of issues, including regional security and defense cooperation. The first commercial flight from Israel to the United Arab Emirates has landed in Abu Dhabi. This comes after the two countries signed a US brokered peace deal earlier this month to normalize relations. The flight carried top officials from the United States and Israel to put final touches to the peace pact. The deal is the first such accommodation between the Arab country and Israel in more than 20 years. Palestinians are dismayed by the deal. They are of the view that the deal would weaken the pan-Arab position that calls for Israeli withdrawal from the occupied territories. Lebanese President Michel Aoun has designated Ambassador Mustafa Adib as the Prime Minister. Adib secured the support of 90 lawmakers in the 120-member Lebanese parliament. He is also backed by Hezbollah and its allies. Soon after his designation, Adib vowed reforms and a new IMF deal to rescue the dwindling economy of Lebanon. The previous government of Hassan Diab resigned on August the 10th in the wake of Beirut explosion that killed nearly 200 people. The three Baltic states have imposed travel bans on Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko and 29 other officials. The sanctions target officials accused of playing a role in the unrest that has gripped Belarus since the re-election of Lukashenko. Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania have also called on the West to take firm action against Lukashenko. More in this report. Belarus plunged into a political crisis after opposition parties challenged the results of August 9 elections. Opposition candidate Svetlana Tikhanovskaya fled to Lithuania after calling for mass rallies. A spokesman said Tikhanovskaya will speak to the UN Security Council on Friday. The European Union is also facing growing calls to impose sanctions on Belarus over the alleged use of force against protesters. Sensing the gravity of the situation, Lukashenko turned to Russia and secured a promise of Russian security assistance should Belarus request it. The election is shaping up to be the biggest challenge to Lukashenko's rule in his 26 years at the helm of the country of 9.5 million. The European Union has called for dialogue with Turkey and demanded that Ankara refrains from unilateral steps in the Eastern Mediterranean. Speaking at a news conference, a spokesman for the EU Foreign Policy Chief, Peter Stano, said the lasting solutions can only be found through dialogue. He said negotiations are necessary in EU's relations both as a neighbor and a partner of Turkey. Stano said the EU foreign ministers were determined to show solidarity with its two affected member states, Cyprus and Greece. The comments came after the 27 EU ministers discussed last week tensions between two of the bloc's members and Turkey. Turkey has been exploring for hydrocarbons in the Mediterranean, where its survey operations in disputed waters have drawn protests from Greece and Cyprus. Sudan's main rebel alliance has agreed on a peace deal with the government to end 17 years of conflict. The state media said Sudan Revolutionary Front, the southern states of South Kordofan and the Blue Nile inked the deal with the government after year-long talks. It says senior government officials and rebel leaders signed their initials on protocols on security arrangements. The state media said a formal signing ceremony was held in neighboring South Sudan's capital, Juba. It said Sudanese Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok and several ministers flew to Juba on Sunday in pursuit of the agreement. Hamdok said finding a deal had taken longer than first hoped after an initial agreement in September 2019. Yemen's coalition forces say they have destroyed a Houthi explosive-laden drone and a remotely controlled boat aimed at targeting Saudi Arabia. In a statement, coalition spokesman Turki al-Maliki said the drone was downed at the kingdom's Aba International Airport. Al-Maliki said although the drone was intercepted, some splinters fell at the airport, but he said no casualties were reported after the incident. Al-Maliki said the boat was destroyed south of the Red Sea. He said the explosive-laden boat posed a threat to regional and international security, shipping routes and global trade. The Houthis have not claimed the responsibility for the attacks. In Pakistan, 6 people have lost their lives to the coronavirus in the past 24 hours. The Health Ministry says the death toll has reached 6,294 so far. The ministry said daily new cases have dropped to 230 from 13 yesterday's 264. It said the number of active cases in the country is at 8,873. More than 280,000 patients out of some 295,000 have recovered, which accounts for a 94% recovery rate in the country. Sindh remains the most affected province with nearly 129,000 infections, while Punjab has reported over 96,000 cases so far. India has become the world's third worst affected country with more than 64,000 COVID-19 deaths, overtaking Mexico as 971 people died overnight. India's coronavirus infections have crossed 3.6 million after more than 78,000 tested positive in a day. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 847,000 lives, while over 25 million have contracted the disease.
Even with the outbreak slowing down in the Americas, thousands continue to die every day as the virus wreaks havoc in Europe and India. India is now the epicenter of the virus, reporting the third highest infections tally and the fourth highest death toll in the world. In the US, the states of Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota report record daily infections. As Mexico's death toll crosses the 64,000 mark, health authorities press onward to secure a vaccine from multiple countries.
COVAX facility promises to give us access to 20% of vaccines to help with 20% of Mexico's population. We agree, depending on what the health ministry says, but it is a good option because the risk is shared among the countries with the vaccines, but it's not enough. We cannot depend on it. COVAX promises to help with 20% of the population. We need a bigger quantity of vaccines, and so do other countries as well. That's why we are all holding bilateral talks.
Over in Asia, mainland China reported 17 new imported cases with no domestic transmissions. In South Korea, new cases remained below 300 for the second day straight, with only 248 cases being recorded overnight. Whereas in Australia's second most populous state of Victoria, cases fell to a 7-week low.
I know and understand that just as the vast majority of Victorians are doing the right thing, and that's central to this strategy working, I know that Victorians also want the clearest picture possible of what the next phase looks like. We cannot provide that certainty today. We cannot provide a detailed roadmap today, but we will provide that on Sunday. Another week's data is almost invaluable.
In Europe, the UK has reported the highest daily cases since June 4th. Greece's total cases topped 10,000, half of which were reported just in August. Whereas in France, a persistent rise in infections jeopardizes the government's push to reopen schools this week.
The United States says the coronavirus vaccine can be released in the country sooner than expected. In an interview, the head of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, Stephen Hahn, said the vaccine can be given emergency approval before the end of trials. Hahn says such a request for extraordinary approval will have to come from the vaccine developer. He said the decision to launch the vaccine before the end of phase 3 mass human testing trials will involve science and not politics. Hahn added that an emergency authorization will not necessarily cover everyone and might be granted for specific high-risk groups. China has condemned the Czech Republic over its steps towards Taiwan, saying they undermine Chinese sovereignty. The Chinese government's top diplomat, Wang Yi, says Czech Senate Speaker Miloš Vystrčić will pay a heavy price for making an official trip to Taiwan. Speaking in Germany, Yi said there would be retribution for Prague's actions. He said Beijing will retaliate for Czech's short-sighted behavior and political opportunism. But Czech Senate Speaker Miloš Vystrčić said Prague does not seek political confrontation. Vystrčić arrived in Taipei on Sunday on a visit to promote business links with Taiwan, saying Prague would not bow to Beijing's objections. France's Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian has blamed the stalemate in Brexit talks on what he called Britain's attitude. Speaking to French ambassadors based in Europe, Le Drian said the EU was as united as ever in reaching an ambitious Brexit deal. He said it was up to Britain to make the next move. Le Drian accused Britain of having a rigid and unworkable attitude during the negotiations.
Solidarity also in the negotiations on the future relationship between the European Union and the United Kingdom. Negotiations that are not advancing because of an uncompromising and, let's be clear, unrealistic attitude of the United Kingdom.
North Macedonia's parliament has approved the cabinet of Prime Minister Zoran Zaev in a vote of confidence. 62 lawmakers out of 113 voted in favor, while 51 voted against the Prime Minister. The alliance led by the ruling Social Democratic Union of Macedonia secured 35.89% of all votes in July 15 snap polls. The vote ends a period of 8 months in which North Macedonia was run by a technical government originally mandated to be in power till April. The vote was then delayed because of the coronavirus pandemic. Zaev is pledged to tackle the pandemic and its economic effects, as well as make progress on EU accession talks. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. The trial of 4 suspects involved in the downing of Malaysian Airlines flight MH17 over eastern Ukraine in 2014 will resume today in The Hague. The hearings will begin with testimonies of the families of the victims. The Dutch-led international team said all 4 suspects will face murder charges if convicted. The prosecutor said flight MH17 from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur was deliberately shot down by a Buk missile fired by the pro-Russian rebels in Ukraine. All 298 people on board, mostly Dutch citizens, were killed. Russia has denied any involvement in the case. 4 people have been killed in a collision between an SUV and an armored U.S. military vehicle in South Korea's Pocheon city. Emergency officials say the incident occurred near the Rodriguez range near the North Korean border. They said all 4 people in the SUV died in the crash, while 1 U.S. soldier in the armored vehicle suffered a minor injury. South Korean police say they have requested an autopsy to investigate the SUV driver's use of alcohol or drugs before the crash. It added the exact cause of the accident is still under investigation. In Sudan, 90 people have died and thousands of homes have been destroyed after weeks of nationwide heavy flooding. Military said it had deployed troops to aid in evacuations and distribute food among those affected. It said troops helped locals build barricades and other shields against the water from the Nile River. More than 380,000 people in Sudan's 17 provinces have been affected by heavy rainfall and flooding since the start of the rainy season in July.
It always comes, the flooding, but never like this. This year we had a huge increase in a way that is simply, we're afraid of it. As you can see, he keeps removing it, the water. And no matter how much he removes, we keep getting more from the sea. You remove the water and it comes back from the River Nile right into the house.
India's former President Pranab Mukherjee has died 21 days after it was confirmed that he had tested positive for the novel coronavirus. The 84-year-old was in a hospital to remove a clot in his brain when it was discovered he also had COVID-19. Before serving as president between 2012 and 2017, Mukherjee held several important portfolios during his 51-year political career. These included the finance, foreign and the defense ministries. His son Abhijit confirmed the news in a tweet. Mukherjee also served on the boards of International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Britain's Prince William and Prince Harry have come together to honor Princess Diana on the 23rd death anniversary of their mother. In a joint statement, the brothers said the statue to honor Princess Diana will be installed in the garden of her former home, Kensington Palace, in July 2021. Born in Britain on the 1st of July 1961, Diana was known for her humanitarian and charity work. She championed causes such as the fight against landmines and changed attitudes to those diagnosed with HIV and AIDS. The late princess left a mark in people's hearts thanks to her charisma and empathy. The Princess of Wales traveled to Pakistan 3 times during her life, once in 1991 and again in 1996 and 97. Diana died in a car crash in Paris in 1997. In Germany, researchers are planting downy oak trees in forests in a bid to help them survive climate change. These Mediterranean trees can outlive even in changing weather patterns. The successful experiment has given hope that it can help fill its role in the ecosystem. Details in this report.
Years of summer heat waves and minimal rainfall are damaging Germany's forests. Some native species like pine and oak are struggling with the changing weather condition. The city of Berlin has said due to extreme weather, there were 7,000 fewer trees at the end of 2019 compared with 2016.
We have seen that the forest here is being badly damaged by drought, and the effects of climate change mean we expect this situation to occur often in future. For a forest manager, it is important to plant trees now which can cope with the climate in 80 or 100 years.
German researchers have experimented with the plantation of Mediterranean trees in the forests. These trees have survived even extreme weather. The researchers hope that the downy oak can help fill its role in the ecosystem, as is also a habitat for over 100 species of insects.
This is a downy oak. It's a species which grows in the northern Mediterranean and the south of France. These are the trees we have had the most success with. In the past 9 years, they have grown 4 meters or more, and they survived the summers of 2018, 2019, and 2020 without damage. So we are very happy with these results. They show that our idea has legs.
Wolfgang Brugmann says high temperatures and dry conditions are likely to become more frequent in the coming years. Therefore, forest managers need to plan ahead and start planting species that will be able to adapt an altered climate.
Mexico's sweeping traffic woes have declined during the pandemic restrictions as the public resorted to riding bicycles to their workplaces. More details in this report.
After the coronavirus SOPs were introduced in the Mexico City, people started using bicycles instead of commuting in fully packed metro bus carriages. In a bid to stay COVID-19 free, Mexicans avoided metro, which is a fragile public transport system that commuted 5 million people daily prior to the pandemic.
I prefer to get on the bike rather than on the metro, so as to not expose myself to the situation that we are going through in quarantine. Also, it's a healthy habit.
This trend is a good news for the city's bicycle shops as well as because their sales surged 3 times during the pandemic.
People are scared to get on public transport. They want to do exercise. They want to be stronger, healthier. And the truth is, all bikes are selling very well, at triple normal sales.
The idea of bicycling commuters was particularly welcomed by the city's administration. So in an attempt to keep this trend alive, even after the restrictions are lifted, Mexico City's government has launched a new urban planning project of 70-kilometer-long biker lanes.
It's time for a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay tuned. Most major European bourses are trading higher as global market players are speculating supportive monetary policy measures around the globe. Earlier, the US Federal Reserve announced cutting interest rates, which has attracted activity in the global markets. European stock 600 has gained close to 1%. Markets in the UK are closed for a bank holiday, and London's FTSE 100 is trading close to 1% lower. Frankfurt's DAX is trading almost 1% higher. Paris's CAC 40 gains more than 1%. Asia-Pacific markets on Monday were largely higher, with Japanese shares leading the gains following news of Warren Buffett's acquisition in leading Japanese firms. In China, official economic data released today has shown that activity in services sector has expanded at a much faster pace than expected in August. This is in line with an increase in demand across the economy from a previous coronavirus-induced slump. The official non-manufacturing purchasing managers index also rose a month earlier. China's services sector, including smaller private companies, has been slower to recover from the health crisis than manufacturing, but during the same July-August period, China's manufacturing output has grown at a slow pace than the services industry because of floods. The official data shows the manufacturing purchasing managers index has fallen a fraction in July. In football, Olympique Lyon have won their 5th consecutive Women's Champions League title after beating Wolfsburg by 3-1 in San Sebastian. With this victory, Lyon have lifted a record 7 trophies in total. France's Eugene Le Sommer opened the scoring, and Japan's Saki Kumagai lashed in to put Lyon 2-0 up at halftime. Alexandra Popp headed in for Wolfsburg after the break, but Sarah York late 3rd goal sealed the victory for Lyon. England right back Lucy Bronze win her 3rd straight European crown with her French club. Another weather situation from around the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus News.